from Bihar, Bodh Gaya. When the prince was about 29, he requested permission from his father to leave the palace and ride into the city in the 6th century before our era, in the small North Indian kingdom of the Shakya clan, straddling what is today the Nepal-Bihar border, there was born a prince. His father, King Suddhodana, ruled the small Shakya capital of Kapilvastu. His mother, Queen Mahamaya, died 7 days after giving birth. The prince was named Siddharth, meaning, in Sanskrit, the one whose purpose has been accomplished. He was raised by his aunt, Mahaprajapati. His father, who had received an unsettling prediction at the prince's birth, that the boy would become either a great king or a great spiritual seeker, was determined that the prince would be a king. He built 3 palaces. He stocked them with pleasures. He forbade any messenger of suffering, any aged person, any sick person, any corpse, from being seen by the prince. He arranged the prince's marriage at 16 to a beautiful Shakya princess named Yashodhara. Siddharth lived behind these walls for 29 years. He had a son, Rahula. He had every comfort. He did not, in any practical sense, know what suffering was. When the prince was about 29, he requested permission from his father to leave the palace and ride into the city in his chariot. The father agreed, on the condition that the city be cleared of all aged, sick, and dying people beforehand. The clearing was attempted. It was incomplete. On 4 successive outings, the prince saw 4 things he had never been allowed to see. On the first outing, he saw an old man, bent, toothless, leaning on a stick. He asked his charioteer, Channa, what this was. Channa told him, "This is what happens to every man. We all grow old." On the second outing, he saw a man with a wasting disease, his body covered in sores. Channa told him, "This is what happens to every man. We all suffer illness." On the third outing, he saw a corpse being carried to the cremation ground by weeping relatives. Channa told him, "This is what happens to every man. We all die." On the fourth outing, he saw a wandering ascetic, a thin, calm-eyed man in a yellow robe, walking with a begging bowl, smiling slightly. Channa told him, "This is a man who has left his household to seek the truth about old age, sickness, and death. He has chosen the question over the comfort." Siddharth looked at the ascetic for a long time. He returned to his palace. He sat in his chambers all night. By dawn, he had made his decision. In the middle of the night, while his wife Yashodhara slept beside him and his infant son Rahula slept in a cradle nearby, Siddharth rose silently. He looked at his wife. He looked at his son. He did not say goodbye to either of them. He was afraid that if he woke them, he would not be able to leave. He went to the stables. He woke his charioteer Channa. He saddled his white horse, Kantaka. He rode out of the palace gates in the dark, with Channa following. He rode several miles from the city. At the edge of his father's kingdom, he dismounted. He cut off his own long hair with his sword. He removed his royal robes and exchanged them for the simple yellow robe of a forest ascetic. He gave the horse and his robes to Channa with instructions to return them to his father. He told Channa to tell his family that he had left to seek the truth, and that he would either return having found it, or not return at all. Channa wept. Kantaka, the horse, wept. Siddharth turned and walked alone into the forest, on his bare feet, with nothing but a yellow robe and a begging bowl. He was 29 years old. Siddhartha spent the next 6 years moving through the kingdoms of the Ganges plain searching for a teacher who could explain to him the way out of suffering. He studied under two famous meditation masters of the period, Alara Kalam and Uddaka Ramputta. He reached, under their instruction, the most refined meditative states known to the spiritual culture of his time. He found, however, that these states did not solve the problem. He could enter deep absorption, but when he came out of it, the problem of old age, sickness, and death was still there. He left both teachers. He went, finally, with 5 other ascetics, to the forest near the small village of Uruvela on the Niranjana river, in what is today Bihar, in the Gaya district. He took up severe physical austerity. He fasted for very long periods. He ate, at one stage, only a single grain of rice per day. His body wasted away. His skin clung to his bones. He could feel, by pressing his belly, the bones of his back through his abdomen. His hair fell out. He almost died. He realized, lying on the dust under a tree, that this also was not working. He had punished his body for years, and the problem of suffering was still there. He had failed. A village woman named Sujata, the daughter of a wealthy cowherd in the nearby village, had been preparing an annual offering for a tree deity. She brought, that morning, a golden ball of paisa, milk rice cooked with honey, to offer at the tree. She saw, instead of a deity, a starved ascetic lying at the foot of the tree, almost dead. She thought, in pity, that he might be the tree deity in human form. She offered him the ball of milk rice. Siddhartha, the chronicles say, ate the milk rice slowly. It was the first proper food he had eaten in 6 years. His strength returned. He sat up. The 5 fellow ascetics who had been practicing severe austerity with him, watching him eat the milk rice, were disgusted. They thought he had given up. They left him in contempt. Siddhartha, alone now, walked a short distance to a particular pipal tree, a large old fig tree on the banks of the Niranjana river. He sat down under it. He arranged a small mat of kusha grass. He took the lotus posture. He made a vow, out loud, to himself, I will not move from this spot, even if my flesh and bones decay, until I have found what I came to find. He closed his eyes. He began to meditate. The Buddhist tradition records, in great detail, what happened to Siddhartha under the pipal tree that night. He sat down at sunset. He stayed seated. Various forces came to test him. There came, first, fear. He was assailed by visions of demons, of armies, of monsters, attacking him. He saw, in his meditation, terrifying images. He did not move. The visions passed. There came, second, doubt. A voice, the Buddhist texts call this voice Mara, the personification of all that prevents enlightenment, whispered to him that he was not worthy, that he was wasting his time, that no human being could solve what he was trying to solve. He continued to meditate. The doubt passed. There came, third, desire. Mara sent, in vision, the most beautiful women of the world to seduce him. He did not stir. The desire passed. There came, fourth, the temptation of distraction, visions of pleasant things, of his wife, of his son, of the comfort of going home, of being loved. He continued. The distraction passed. By dawn, the chronicles say, Mara had exhausted his repertoire. He withdrew. Siddhartha sat alone under the tree, in the moments before sunrise. The first light of dawn touched the leaves above him. And he saw, in that instant, exactly what he had been seeking. He saw the four noble truths: there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, suffering can end, there is a path that ends suffering. He saw the dependent origination, how, link by link, suffering arises in the mind. He saw the way out. The pipal tree, from that morning, was no longer just a pipal tree. The village, from that morning, was no longer just Uruvela. He was, from that morning, no longer Siddharth. He was the Buddha, the one who has awakened. The village would, eventually, be renamed Bodh Gaya, the place of awakening. The tree would be called the Bodhi tree. The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for several more days after the morning of awakening. He considered, in those days, whether to teach what he had discovered or not. He thought the teaching would be very difficult for most people to grasp. He thought, briefly, of remaining alone and silent. The tradition says that the god Brahma himself appeared and begged him to teach, saying that there were beings in the world whose eyes were only lightly covered with dust, and who would understand if they were told. The Buddha agreed. He stood up. He walked, on his bare feet, the distance from Bodh Gaya to a small deer park outside the city of Varanasi, a walk of some 200 kilometers, to find the 5 ascetics who had abandoned him. He found them at Sarnath. He sat down with them. He gave them his first sermon, the Dharmachakra Pravatana Sutra, the setting in motion of the wheel of Dharma. He taught them, in clear simple Magdhi Prakrit, the language of the common people of Bihar, the 4 noble truths and the eightfold path. The 5 ascetics, who had walked out on him months earlier, became his first 5 disciples. The Buddhist Sangha, the monastic community, was born that afternoon at Sarnath. The Buddha would go on to teach, walking on foot up and down the Ganga plain, for the next 45 years, until he died at the age of 80 in the small Bihari town of Kushinagar. Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region, in your language.